Think of it like this. A wealthy sugar daddy's intense obsession with his young lover takes a deadly turn. What began as a relationship marked by luxury and adoration quickly devolved into a chilling tragedy. How did a once sweet romance end in such a shocking and violent way? But beneath this polished exterior lies a dark and twisted tale, centered around a grand mansion on Magnolia Lane. This mansion, with its manicured lawns and imposing architecture, was the residence of Vivian Blackwood. It's in this opulent setting that the story of obsession, jealousy, and murder unfolded, shattering the peace of Rosewood Heights and leaving the community in shock. Vivian Blackwood, at 54, she was a formidable businesswoman and philanthropist, admired for her sharp acumen and generosity. She had built a fortune from the ground up, transforming a small inheritance into a chain of luxury spas that catered to New England's elite. Vivian's presence was commanding. With her statuesque figure, expertly styled chestnut hair, and designer wardrobe, she exuded confidence and sophistication. Despite her success, Vivian was haunted by the scars of a bitter divorce from Richard Blackwood, a successful corporate lawyer, after 15 years of marriage and 2 children. Then there was Mason Crawford, a 26-year-old personal trainer at the prestigious Rosewood Country Club. Young, vibrant, and full of potential, Mason had grown up in a working-class neighborhood in South Boston. Athletic and charming, he had always excelled in sports until a knee injury dashed his college football dreams. Instead, he pursued a degree in exercise science and found a job as a personal trainer where his chiseled physique and warm brown eyes quickly captured attention. Vivian first met Mason during one of her regular workout sessions at the Rosewood Country Club. It started innocently enough, with casual flirtation that quickly escalated into a full-fledged affair. For Vivian, Mason represented everything she feared she was losing: youth, vitality, and a sense of being desired. She was intoxicated by his energy and warmth, finding herself more and more obsessed with maintaining her youth and allure.
I know what they're looking for is sex. Better to just get that money and get the hell out.
If you're smart enough, then you don't go on the date in the first place.
Mason, in turn, was drawn to Vivian's confidence and intelligence, and the luxurious lifestyle she offered was undoubtedly appealing. What began as an exciting and passionate relationship soon took a darker turn as Vivian's obsession deepened. Vivian spared no expense in showering Mason with lavish gifts: designer clothes, a luxury watch, even a sports car. She whisked him away on exotic vacations to tropical islands and European cities, reveling in the envious glances they received. For Mason, it was a whirlwind of new experiences and indulgences. But as the months passed, the weight of Vivian's expectations and possessiveness began to take a toll. Vivian became more withdrawn from her social circles, focusing all her attention on Mason and their relationship. Her children, Abigail and Nathan, noticed the change and grew increasingly concerned, but felt powerless to intervene. Mason's family and friends, including his older sister Maggie and best friend Jake Sullivan, watched with mixed feelings of awe and concern. Mason confided in Jake that while he enjoyed the perks of the relationship, he felt trapped by Vivian's jealousy and demands on his time. The situation took a drastic turn when Zoe Chen entered the picture. Zoe was a 23-year-old medical student who also frequented the country club. Her natural beauty, intelligence, and ambition made her everything Vivian feared she was losing. Seeing Zoe as a younger version of herself, Vivian was consumed by jealousy. She took drastic measures to control Mason, including hiring a private investigator to follow him and use her influence at the country club to revoke Zoe's membership. Vivian's behavior became increasingly erratic, showing up unannounced at Mason's apartment and calling him incessantly. Mason felt suffocated and unsure how to escape the relationship without facing severe consequences, both personally and professionally. Everything came to a head on the night of September 22nd. Vivian had planned an intimate dinner at her mansion, complete with caviar, champagne, and a private chef. She hoped to persuade Mason to move in with her permanently, thinking it would solidify their relationship. But when Mason arrived late, disheveled, and smelling faintly of Zoe's perfume, Vivian's temper flared. The atmosphere was tense, and soon a heated argument broke out. Vivian accused Mason of being unfaithful, and their shouting match quickly escalated. In a fit of rage, Vivian grabbed a heavy crystal wine decanter and struck Mason over the head. The blow was fatal. Mason collapsed to the floor, blood pooling around his lifeless body.
The case sparked discussions about the dynamics of age gap relationships, the dangers of obsession.
In the immediate aftermath, Vivian's mind raced with panic and desperation. She couldn't bear the thought of losing everything she had worked for, her reputation, her business, her freedom. She decided to cover up the crime. Drawing on knowledge from forensic TV shows, she meticulously cleaned the scene, scrubbing away blood and disposing of evidence. She wrapped Mason's body in an expensive Persian rug and, with great difficulty, dragged it to her garage. Loading the body into the trunk of her Mercedes SUV, she drove to a remote area of the Blue Hills Reservation and buried him in a shallow grave, covering it with leaves and branches. The next day, Vivian maintained a facade of normalcy, attending meetings and social engagements as if nothing had happened. Mason's disappearance was reported by his roommate Carlos Ramirez, who grew concerned when Mason didn't come home and didn't respond to calls or texts. The police launched an investigation, led by Detective Alexandra Morgan, known for her sharp intellect and persistence. The investigation quickly focused on Vivian, as interviews with Mason's friends and coworkers revealed her possessive nature and Mason's growing discomfort. Detective Morgan noticed inconsistencies in Vivian's story and her avoidance of eye contact when discussing certain details. As the investigation progressed, evidence began to pile up. Security footage from a gas station near the Blue Hills Reservation showed Vivian's SUV in the area on the night of Mason's disappearance. Blood traces found in Vivian's garage matched Mason's blood type. With mounting evidence, Detective Morgan obtained a warrant to search Vivian's property. They found a journal detailing her obsession with Mason and her growing paranoia about losing him. The final entry, dated September 22nd, contained the chilling line, "I'd rather see him dead than with someone else." Faced with the overwhelming evidence, Vivian eventually broke down and confessed during a lengthy interrogation. The trial was a media sensation. Reporters camped outside the courthouse and the public followed every detail closely. The prosecution painted Vivian as a possessive, unstable woman driven to murder by jealousy. They argued the murder was premeditated, using her journal entries as evidence. The defense tried to portray Vivian as a victim of manipulation, arguing that Mason had exploited her wealth and insecurities. They pushed for a manslaughter charge, claiming she acted in the heat of passion. Character witnesses spoke of her philanthropic work, and a psychologist testified about her emotional trauma and struggles with aging.
In the aftermath of the trial, the community of Rosewood Heights was left to grapple with the shocking reality.
The most dramatic moment came when Zoe Chen testified, tearfully recounting her friendship with Mason and the harassment from Vivian. Vivian herself took the stand, expressing remorse but maintaining she didn't intend to kill Mason. Under cross-examination, she struggled to explain the discrepancies in her statements and the journal evidence. After a 4-week trial, the jury found Vivian guilty of second-degree murder. She was sentenced to 25 years to life with the possibility of parole after 25 years. The verdict brought some closure to Mason's family, but the pain of his loss remained profound. The aftermath of Mason's death left a lasting impact on his family and the community of Rosewood Heights. Mason's parents, Sean and Mary, struggled to cope with their son's violent end, and his sister Maggie found it hard to move on. The once idyllic suburb was now overshadowed by the dark events, and neighbors looked at each other with newfound suspicion. Mason's family and friends turned their grief into action, launching campaigns to raise awareness about domestic violence and toxic relationships. Jake Sullivan, Mason's best friend, became a leading advocate, founding the Mason Crawford Foundation to support those in abusive relationships and educate the public about recognizing warning signs. Detective Alexandra Morgan received commendations for her meticulous investigation, and the case became a model for law enforcement. It highlighted the importance of taking relationship violence seriously, regardless of the status or gender of those involved. Vivian Blackwood's life post-conviction was a far cry from her days of luxury and power. Her business empire collapsed as investors and clients distanced themselves. In prison, she faced isolation, shunned by other inmates for the nature of her crime. She was a shadow of her former self, stripped of her designer clothes and confidence. So what are your thoughts on this? Let us know in the comments below.